Hey guys, and welcome to another recent gaming video. And I'm going to try to keep this one short because I even debated whether or not I wanted to do videos for all the parts of this one or wait until I was done for the entirety of the game, but that would have been months down the road, so the decision kind of made itself. Anyway, what am I babbling on about? Well, I played the first episode of another episodic choose your own adventure style adventure game called Life is Strange a few days ago, and now today in the background here I'm downloading the second episode of Life is Strange. And I had a chance to watch a couple YouTubers play it just so I would kind of keep fresh in my mind. So, without further ado, let's talk about this. I want to kind of cover all the different little things that I thought about when I played this first episode. Okay, first of all, let's just go ahead and cover a little bit more about its comparisons to stuff like Telltale Games efforts like The Walking Dead and Wolf Among Us and Tales from the Borderlands and Game of Thrones and yada 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 yada. If you're any kind of a gamer in touch with current games, you've at least heard of Telltale, and you know that some of their recent games have been pretty good. I've played Wolf Among Us and the first two seasons of Walking Dead, and I love them. A different kind of a take. They're to me they're very reminiscent of like the old point and click adventure style games from the 90s and into the 2000s. Anything from like the Myst series to Broken Sword to like just said all kinds of old PC games that were like that. And they've been kind of enhanced and modernized, I guess you would say. A lot of these games allow you to actually take control of your character and walk around in the environment, but then you come upon objects or other characters that you can interact with. You get dialogue choices, and you get to make choices and decisions that will have an effect on not just the ending of the game, but even other interactions as you go. And this was something that was actually, this game was made by Square Enix, and Don't Nod Entertainment, I believe, is the name of the developer themselves. Square is the publisher. And they did a really good job, in my opinion, of making something similar to those games, but also different. One of the first things that I loved about it as far as differences go is that it's not based on some other property that you might want to be familiar with before you get into it. A lot of Telltale stuff is based on graphic novels, comic books, TV shows, and even other video games. Telltale even has a Minecraft game done in their style of adventuring. I'm not so sure how that's going to work, but we'll worry about that another time if I decide to play that. Those games, for the most part, the ones that I've played of Telltale have all been very gritty, very dark, very atmospheric, taking on some pretty serious type topics, the zombie apocalypse, and Wolf Among Us kind of defies explanation, but it's just a really mature and modern take on fairy tale type stuff. Whereas Life is Strange, really on the surface, just looks like a tale of an angsty teen and what it's like to be a teen in this world, and to be bullied or to be overlooked or to be angsty, for lack of a better term. But deep down at the core of it, there's actually a lot more to it. But I loved how, and I know this is going to sound strange coming from a 40-year-old guy, but there were a lot of relatable aspects to the characters in this game, especially the main character, whose name is Max Caulfield. She's an 18-year-old girl who's returning home to her smaller town in, I believe she's in Oregon or Washington State. She goes to Seattle at some point prior to the events of the game, but I think she actually lives in Oregon during the game itself. She comes back to go to this prestigious art and photography school because that's what she wants to do. She's a photographer, and now she has to deal with the cliques and the different kinds of people that you encounter in schools. I'm not sure if you heard that. That was either thunder or somebody with a very loud truck starting next to my house. And she has to kind of take on all of this well, like I said, all the angsty teen stuff that you have to deal with. I remember dealing with it when I was a teen, and in a lot of ways, at this stage in my life, I'm still dealing with it. Those kind of things don't really ever go away. So that's why this game could really appeal to me, because it doesn't matter where you work, how old you are, who you are, what you are. There's always that, predicament of cliques and people who bully you and people who judge you, and you can deal with it in many different ways. But I'm more like a Max Caulfield who feels happier not participating but observing. There were a few moments in the game where she said stuff along those lines. I'm not going to delve too deep into that. Like I said, I wanted to talk about mostly the things that impressed me with this first episode of it. Even though it's modern time, the game events take place in like 2013, even though the game just came out this year. A lot of the stuff in the game reminds me so much of the 90s. There's so much 90s style oozing from this game. That teetering line between the digital of now and the analog of just, even like I said, 15, 20 years ago in the 90s. Things were so different back then. And the music that's used in this game is so awesome. It's like I don't really know who these groups are. I'm familiar with a lot of independent music, but it seemed like the soundtrack to this game was just perfectly suited for that 90s vibe and that hipsterish almost. It's what's funny. A lot of these kids get accused of being hipsters, and I'm not even 100% sure that kids growing up nowadays would be considered hipsters. It's just a style now that's kind of adapted, and it's a style that was it's retro in that it borrows from like the 90s and the 80s. I don't know. It reminded me a whole lot of my days in Montana in the mid to late 90s. So anything that makes me feel a little nostalgic about a time in my life that I was really relatively happy in, it kind of gets my vote. So the game really appealed to me. It also reminds me of another game called Gone Home, which is another game that kind of sticks its feet into 90s nostalgia. It's not much of a game. There's probably more gameplay in Life is Strange than there is in Gone Home, but Gone Home in some ways felt like a love letter to the Northwest in the 90s. And so anyway, it's if somebody played Life is Strange and wanted something that might give them some of that feel, I would say check out Gone Home. But anyway, I don't know. This game was just a whole lot of fun. I wasn't sure what to expect with it. I wasn't sure that a game about a girl who is just kind of living her life and dealing with all that and then discovers that she has this weird ability would do much for me, but it really, really did. It's well done, and I like the characters. I like the interactions. Now, the one question that looms over this whole game for me now is about that mysterious power I just mentioned. During this first episode of Life is Strange, Max discovers that she has the ability to rewind time. Now, as far as a gameplay mechanic goes, that's cool. I know, a game like Prince of Persia: Sands of Time kind of did this, but it did it because, like, if you were platforming and you missed something and you fell to your death, you could rewind and try it again. In this game, there's not a whole lot of platforming or even action, but you learn things and pick up details about characters and the environment around you, and in conversations that you can then rewind and go back and do it all over again to progress. And that's cool as far as a gameplay mechanic goes, but as far as the story is concerned, that's where my biggest concern about this entire game comes into play, is how is this going to translate into the rest of the story? Is this something where they're going to have to explain to us why she has this ability? Or will it always just be left out there? Oh, she has this ability, now play the game. And, there's mystery and stuff involved in this, involving a missing student who happens to be very important to one of Max's best friends. And I feel like that's probably going to be the main plot line of the story. And then there's, just the teen drama that's unfolding. I don't know if they're ever going to say, hey, now we got to explain to you why she has this ability. Also, she she has these visions where she sees a future a couple days ahead of where she's currently at, that would suggest that some massive tornado is going to destroy her town. So now I'm like, is this game going to turn into some sort of an, like weather disaster game? So I'm confused as to where things are going to go. I'm confused as to whether or not they try to explain why she has the ability to rewind time. Do they want to spend too much time doing that? There's a lot of books and movies and whatnot that have those kinds of plot points, and usually they're just so nonsensical that you can't help but be a little disappointed when they decide that that's what they want to get into. So I'm torn on whether or not I want them to actually explain why she has this ability or not. It would be disappointing not to have some idea. It would also be very disappointing if they just come up with the standard kind of cliche plot devices. So I don't know. But I'm not going to worry about that anymore. Like I said, I am hopefully going to be able to play episode 2 here any second. But and then I'll do another video for that. So anyway, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for that next part. And then it'll be a while before the next ones come out, because they're going about, I don't know, a couple of months in between each one. But I'm really enjoying it. So yeah. Anyway, I guess that's it. I'll see you next time.